I was just playing video games when my neighbor kissed me. Then he did this. I didn't expect anything to happen that night. Honestly, I was just trying to unwind, controller in hand, eyes on the screen, when he knocked. My neighbor, quiet, mysterious, always watching me a little too long when we crossed paths in the hallway. He sat beside me like it was nothing, asked if he could watch me play. I laughed. We joked. Then, out of nowhere, he kissed me. But what he did after? I still can't believe it happened. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what came next, because this story took a turn that changed everything I thought I knew about him, and about myself. It was supposed to be just another quiet Friday night. I'd ordered takeout, kicked off my shoes, and sunk into the familiar comfort of my worn-out couch with my controller in hand. The glow of the TV lit up my living room in soft, flickering colors as the game loaded. Outside, the city buzzed faintly through the windows. Distant car horns, murmurs of late-night conversations, and that familiar hum of being alive but alone. That's how I liked it, honestly. Just me, my game, and the world I could escape into. Then came the knock. 3 gentle taps, not urgent, almost hesitant. I paused the game and sat up, heart already skipping for no good reason. There was only one person it could be at that hour, Liam, my neighbor across the hall. We weren't exactly close, but he had this way of lingering in my thoughts even when I didn't want him to. There was something quiet about him, thoughtful, intense. He worked late hours, always came home in black hoodies and headphones, barely nodding as we passed in the hallway, but his eyes always held me a second longer than they should have. When I opened the door, there he was, messy hair, a hoodie half-zipped over a white tee, and a strange, uncertain look in his eyes. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but carrying something beneath it. "You said last week you were trying to beat Dark Horizon. Mind if I watch?" I blinked. Sure. Yeah. Come in." He stepped inside like he'd done it 100 times, even though it was the first. He didn't ask where to sit, just dropped down next to me on the couch, not too close, but not exactly distant either. For a while we didn't talk much. I played. He watched. Every now and then he'd laugh softly when I missed a shot or mutter advice like he knew the game better than I did. I found myself glancing at him more than the screen. There was something different about him that night. Like he was holding something in. Like the silence between us wasn't empty. It was building to something. "You're not bad at this," he said after a while, nudging me lightly with his shoulder. "But you overthink it. You always do." That made me laugh. "You've been watching me that closely?" His smile was crooked. "Maybe." I don't know what shifted. Maybe it was the way his eyes lingered on mine, or the way he leaned just a little closer when I tilted the controller to pass it to him. But suddenly, my breath caught. "Liam." He didn't answer with words. He just leaned in and kissed me, soft, slow, like he had waited too long to do it and was afraid of rushing it now. I froze. For a second, my brain went blank. My heart thudded so hard I swore he could hear it, and then I kissed him back. It wasn't frantic, it wasn't desperate. It was careful. Like we were both scared of what we'd just opened up, but neither of us could pull away. When we finally parted, his eyes searched mine, and for once, Liam didn't look so composed. He looked vulnerable. "I've been wanting to do that for a while," he said. His voice was low, raw. I started, but then he stood suddenly. Without a word, he took a deep breath, reached into the pocket of his hoodie, and pulled something out. What he held out to me next made my stomach twist in knots. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even something I understood right away. It was a folded envelope, with my name written on the front. "I didn't come here just for the game," he said, eyes darkening. "You need to read this, right now." I stared at the envelope like it was ticking. My name was written in all caps, sharp and careful, Liam's handwriting, no doubt. I glanced up at him, but he was already pacing, hands stuffed into the pockets of his hoodie again, his jaw clenched like he was waiting for a verdict. "I don't understand," I said, the words dragging through my throat. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "Just read it." My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper inside. It was handwritten, a single sheet, no greeting, no warmth, just blunt honesty. "There's something I haven't told you, something I should have said months ago. You don't really know who I am, not all of me, but you need to know now, because it's not just about me anymore. You live across from someone who isn't always what he seems. I didn't plan to kiss you, but I couldn't pretend anymore. And now that I have, you deserve the truth. Whatever you decide after this, I'll understand." That was it. No secret spelled out. No confession beyond the fact that he was hiding something, and that I apparently needed to be the one to pull it out of him. I folded the letter slowly and placed it on the coffee table. The silence between us was thick, uncomfortable. It wasn't the charged kind from before. This was heavier. "Is this supposed to scare me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned to face me, and for a moment I saw something almost like pain flash across his face. But then it was gone. "No," he said quietly. "It's supposed to be honest." "Then be honest," I said, standing up. "Now, with me." Liam looked at me for a long time. His mouth opened, then closed again. He ran his hand through his hair like he was trying to decide if I could be trusted. "I didn't come here because of the game," he said finally. "Or just because I wanted to kiss you." My heart was beating hard now. He took a breath. "I came here because I've been watching you. Not in a creepy way. I mean, I've noticed you. How alone you seem sometimes. How you pretend like you're okay being invisible." That hit a nerve. I opened my mouth to respond, but he wasn't done. "You were always this guy who just kept to himself. But you looked at me like I mattered, even when we never said a word. And you think that gives you the right to throw this at me out of nowhere?" I snapped, motioning to the letter. He didn't flinch. "No, but I needed you to know that this wasn't just a game for me. The kiss wasn't a dare or some experiment. I meant it. I've meant it for a while now." My head was spinning. There was too much to process. The kiss, the letter, the fact that he had seen through me in ways no one else ever had. I sat back down, rubbing my palms together. "So what now? You confess you've been carrying this thing and expect me to just accept it without knowing what it even is?" Liam slowly walked over and sat beside me again, closer this time. "I didn't write it all down because it's not something I'm proud of," he said, eyes locked on mine. "But I'll tell you everything. Tonight." And then he reached into his bag and pulled out a small, worn photo. 2 boys, around 12 years old, one of them clearly Liam. The other? My breath caught in my throat. "That's me," I whispered. I hadn't seen that picture in more than a decade. I didn't even remember it being taken. He nodded slowly. "We met before, a long time ago. You saved me once, and I never forgot." The room went quiet. My pulse thundered in my ears, because suddenly this wasn't about a kiss anymore. It was about a memory I had forgotten, one that Liam had been carrying for years, and now I had to remember it too. The picture trembled slightly in my hand as I stared at it under the soft light of my living room lamp. It was faded, edges curled and worn, but the faces were clear. My face. And Liam's. Us. Kids. The air thickened as my mind scrambled to fill in the blanks. How could I have forgotten something like that? I don't understand, I muttered. This can't be real. But it was. I could see it in his eyes, the way he watched me, not with expectation but with quiet patience, as if he had been waiting for this moment for years. I didn't expect you to remember, Liam said softly. You were the only one who didn't laugh at me that day. You offered me your lunch, sat next to me when no one else would. A flash of memory hit me like lightning. A school playground, 4th grade. A boy with bruised knees, sitting alone near the fence, head down, pretending not to cry. I remember walking up to him. I remember offering my apple slices just to make him smile. That was you, I said, barely believing it. He nodded. I moved the next week. My dad was in the military. We never stayed long, but I never forgot you. Not once. I sat back, mind reeling. That tiny moment, something I barely remembered, had carved itself so deeply into his life that he had carried it with him ever since. And now he was here, my neighbor, maybe something more. You could have told me, I said, struggling to hold my voice steady. I didn't know how, he admitted. At first, I didn't even realize it was you. Not until a couple months ago. And then, I didn't want to scare you off. My throat was dry. So, what? You just watched me? I wanted to know if you were still the same, he said. And you were. Still kind, still quiet, still good. The way he said that last word made my chest ache. We sat in silence for a moment, the TV still frozen on the pause menu behind us, long forgotten. I looked at him, really looked at him. There was no arrogance in him, no manipulation, just vulnerability. And something else. Hope, maybe. But I was still tangled in doubt. Not just about him, about myself. What did I feel? Why had his kiss made my heart pound harder than anything else had in years? Why now? I asked. Why tonight? Liam shifted on the couch, and for the first time I noticed the nervous rhythm of his foot tapping against the carpet. Because I heard you crying 2 nights ago. I froze. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, he added quickly. But your walls are thin, and I recognized that sound. I turned away, shame burning hot across my cheeks. I didn't even remember crying out loud. But the truth was, I had. I'd felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on me like never before. And I thought no one had noticed. He had. That should have embarrassed me. But instead I felt strangely seen, like something inside me had been cracked open. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. My thoughts were racing in too many directions at once. He stood up too, but didn't come closer. I'm not trying to push you into anything, he said, his voice steadier now. But I meant what I said. That kiss wasn't just about wanting you. It was about finally feeling like I could say something I've buried for a long time. He walked to the door and paused. I'm not going anywhere, he said. But you get to decide what happens next. And then he left. The door closed softly behind him, leaving me in the quiet again. But it didn't feel like the same quiet as before. Now it was full of questions, of memories that had resurfaced, of a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. I looked back down at the photo, and I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. That kiss had awakened more than just attraction. It had awakened a longing I didn't know I still carried. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going over everything: his kiss, the letter, the photograph, and the way he looked at me like I was something more than just the guy next door, like I was a part of his story long before I even knew it. And it scared me how much I wanted it to be true. The next morning, I stood at my window with a mug of coffee that had gone cold in my hands. The city was wrapped in fog, the kind of weather that feels like it's holding its breath. I hadn't seen Liam leave his apartment. His blinds were still closed. I thought about going over there, but I didn't. Not yet. Around noon, the clouds cracked open and the rain came pouring down hard. I stayed inside, pacing, restless, trying to distract myself with anything, cleaning, checking my phone, playing the same level of the game 3 times without really seeing it. Then came the sound of knocking again. I jumped, but this time it wasn't my door, it was shouting. I pressed my ear to the wall that separated our apartments. Muffled voices. One of them was Liam, the other I didn't recognize, low, angry, urgent. Then I heard something crash. I didn't think. I just ran into the hallway. His door was cracked open. "Liam?" I called, stepping in without waiting for permission. The living room was a mess. A chair had been knocked over. A glass shattered on the floor. Liam stood in the center of it all, tense, his hands clenched at his sides. Across from him stood a man in a police uniform. Older, taller, with the kind of presence that didn't just fill a room, it dominated it. Both of them turned when I entered. "Who the hell is this?" the man asked. Liam didn't answer right away. His chest rose and fell like he was holding something back. His voice, when it came, was low and tight. "He's my neighbor." The officer looked at me like I was a stray dog that had wandered into a private meeting. "This doesn't concern you," he said sharply. "Get out." "No," I said, before I even knew why. "Not until I know what's going on." Liam looked at me then, and something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Gratitude? Both? The man turned back to him. "You lied, Liam. You said you cut contact." "I did," Liam snapped. "Until last night." I stared between them, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "Who is he?" I asked. Liam hesitated. Then, quietly, "He's my father." The air seemed to leave the room. "You're what?" Liam ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't tell you. I didn't tell anyone. Because he's not just my dad. He's the reason I left everything behind. The reason I stopped talking about who I really was." I looked at the man, and suddenly everything about him made sense. The posture, the bitterness in his tone, the way he looked at me like I was a threat. He wasn't just a father. He was a man who had made his son afraid to be himself. "This is why you wrote the letter," I said softly. Liam nodded. "He found out I was here. I don't know how, but he thinks I came back to shame him, to destroy his name." His father stepped forward, jabbing a finger toward me. "And what are you? The new little secret? You think this is going to last? It's a phase. He's been confused before." I didn't back away. Liam stepped between us. "No," he said clearly. "I'm not confused. Not this time. And he's not a secret." The silence that followed was brutal. Then his father scoffed, shook his head, and walked out. Liam closed the door behind him and locked it. He leaned his forehead against the wood, shoulders tight. I stepped closer, hesitating. "You okay?" He didn't look at me. "I don't know, but I meant what I said." And then he turned, eyes meeting mine with a look that burned right through the haze. "But now you know why I was afraid." I nodded, but deep down something else was building in me now. Not fear, desire. We didn't talk for a while after his father left. Liam stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the rain streak down the glass like it might wash something away. I sat on the edge of his couch, unsure if I should stay or leave. The apartment was still a mess, shattered glass on the floor, the chair overturned, but neither de nos fez qualquer esforzo para arrumar. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one I saw in his eyes. He finally spoke, voice low, not looking at me. He used to tell me there was only one right way to live, that anything else was weakness. Shameful. I didn't interrupt. I tried to fit into his world. I tried so hard it nearly broke me. But even when I was quiet, when I was careful, he still saw it. Saw me, and hated it. I stood and walked slowly over to him, but didn't touch him yet. I could feel how tightly wound he was. Like one wrong move and he'd unravel. He said I ruined everything when I came out the first time. Made me leave home. Cut me off. I swallowed hard. And now? He let out a breath. Now I'm just a reminder of what he never wanted to admit, that he raised a son who doesn't hate himself. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I reached for him then, gently placing a hand on his arm. He didn't flinch. He just turned toward me slowly, his eyes glassy but steady. "You're not alone anymore," I said. "Not if you don't want to be." He held my gaze for a long time, and then, without a word, he pulled me into his arms. It wasn't passionate. Not yet. It was raw, desperate, a need to feel safe in someone else's presence, even just for a moment. My hands found his back, and I held him as tightly as he held me. I could feel his heart racing against my chest. And that's when I said it, quietly, almost afraid of my own voice. "I think I've been waiting for you too." He pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. "No more secrets?" he asked. I nodded. "No more hiding." And then he kissed me again, this time slower, deeper, like we were both finally allowing ourselves to feel everything we'd been avoiding. His hands slid along my waist as mine tangled in his hair. Every inch of my body lit up as I pressed against him. It wasn't just attraction. It was everything. Connection, longing, freedom. He broke the kiss just long enough to whisper, "Stay." I nodded again. We didn't rush. We moved through the silence like it meant something. He led me toward his bedroom, but there was no urgency. Just the softness of trust and the warmth of bodies finally allowed to speak without words. We lay down together, fully clothed but entangled. His fingers traced slow circles along my arm. I listened to the sound of his breathing, steady and real. For the first time in so long, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I didn't have to be perfect, or funny, or anything other than exactly what I was in that moment. Wanted. Chosen. "I never thought I'd come back here," Liam said after a while, his voice barely above a whisper. "Much less find this." I turned to him, resting my forehead against his. "What is this?" I asked. He smiled. "Whatever we're ready for it to be." We fell asleep like that, wrapped up in something we couldn't name yet but already needed. But the next morning, I woke up alone. The bed beside me was cold. I walked into the living room. No Liam. His phone was gone. The photo of us as kids. Gone. And on the kitchen counter, a folded note, my name on it. Again, I stood there staring at the note, afraid to touch it. It was like déjà vu, the same sharp handwriting, the same weight in my chest. But this time, it wasn't the beginning of something. It felt like an ending I wasn't ready for. I unfolded the paper slowly, I didn't want to leave like this, but I had to see him again. My father. Not to fight, not to ask for anything, just to finally say what I should have said years ago. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but I promise you this time, I'm not running. Not from you, not from myself. You gave me something I didn't think I deserved. Peace. Maybe even love. I need to face this so I can come back to you the way you deserve. If you're still here when I get back, I'll know it's real. L. I sank onto the couch, the note still open in my hands. The silence around me was so loud it hurt. He was gone, again. And this time, I had no idea when, or if, he'd return. I spent the rest of the day trying not to spiral. I walked the city blocks with my hands buried deep in my jacket pockets, watching people live their lives like the world hadn't just shifted under my feet. I kept thinking about how quickly it all happened. The kiss, the letter, the truth about our past, the night we shared, and now, this space he left behind. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Because something had changed in me, too. I'd spent so much of my life hiding behind routines and distractions, pretending that loneliness was easier than uncertainty. But Liam didn't let me stay invisible. He saw me, the real me. And now that I'd been seen, I couldn't go back to pretending. I returned home after sunset and found myself standing at his door. I stared at it, half expecting him to swing it open like it was all some test I had passed, but it stayed closed. So I slid a note of my own under the door. I'll be here. Not because I'm waiting on a fairy tale, but because I believe in the real you, the one who stood between me and your past, the one who kissed me like he meant it, and the one who walked away to become better, not disappear. You're not alone anymore. Come back when you're ready. A week passed. Then 2. I got used to walking by his door and not expecting anything. I went back to my quiet nights, to games I couldn't focus on, to staring out windows waiting for some sign of him. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I opened mine to let in the spring breeze, and I heard footsteps across the hall. When I opened my door, Liam was there, backpack over his shoulder, face tired but soft. I talked to him, he said. Everything, for the first time without yelling. I told him the truth, that I'm done apologizing for who I am, that he doesn't get to define my life anymore. I swallowed. And he didn't take it well. But I'm not leaving broken this time. I'm leaving free. There was a beat of silence. Then he said, I'm not asking to pick up where we left off. I'm asking if I can start again. With you. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. He walked in. No dramatic kiss. No music swelling. Just 2 people who had been through fire, finally letting themselves breathe. We sat on the couch again. Our couch now, maybe. No need to explain what we were or where we were going. We were here, together. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. If this story spoke to you, think about the parts of yourself you've kept hidden. Who are you when no one's watching? And what would it take to show that version to the world? Sometimes love doesn't arrive perfectly wrapped. Sometimes it shows up messy, late, or scared. But it's still worth holding on to. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the bell so you don't miss more stories like this. Stories that speak to the heart, the past, and the brave choices we all have to make. An emotional analysis. More than a kiss. A journey toward visibility, vulnerability, and love. This story begins the way many real ones do. Quietly. In the soft glow of a video game. In the stillness of a familiar room. With a protagonist who has gotten used to being alone. The initial scene is so ordinary, that it almost lulls us into believing it will stay that way. But the knock on the door changes everything, and not just for the character, but for us, the audience. What unfolds is not just a love story. It's a confrontation with memory, fear, desire, and the deep ache for connection that lives inside so many people, especially those who have spent years hiding parts of themselves to survive. At its core, this is a story about being seen, and perhaps more profoundly, about daring to be seen back. When Liam kisses the protagonist, it's not a climax. It's a spark, a beginning. But what immediately follows is not fantasy. It's complexity. It's confusion. It's a letter that says, "You don't know me, not fully." And suddenly, the story swerves into something richer than a romance. It becomes a reckoning. Liam's letter isn't just about secrets. It's about the cost of silence. And when we learn that the two had crossed paths in childhood, the emotional resonance deepens. The protagonist had once offered kindness to a boy who felt invisible. Now, that same boy has returned, not just as a neighbor, but as someone who has been carrying the weight of that moment for years. The layers here are beautifully tragic. That a simple act of childhood compassion could echo into a man's adulthood with such gravity shows how impactful even the smallest gestures can be when someone is on the brink of losing hope. But the heart of the story arrives when Liam's father enters. In that scene, the narrative becomes more than romantic. It becomes political, personal, urgent. We see what rejection looks like when it wears a uniform. We feel what fear feels like when it enters a living room uninvited. And yet, amidst that tension, Liam chooses to stand between the man who raised him and the one who simply listened. He doesn't just defend himself, he defends love, softness, vulnerability. And for so many queer people watching, that moment is not fiction. It's reflection. It's the conversation they never got to have. The father who never came around. The self they never got to protect. The intimacy that follows between the two men isn't gratuitous. It's necessary. It isn't perfect, but it is honest. We feel their uncertainty, their hunger to connect not just physically, but emotionally, soulfully. When they fall asleep in each other's arms, fully clothed, it speaks volumes. They are not rushing toward sex. They're moving toward safety, toward what it means to be held without shame. And then, he's gone. But his leaving isn't abandonment. It's courage. Liam walks away not to disappear, but to confront the last ghost of his past, his father, and to do so as his full, unapologetic self. And the note he leaves behind isn't a goodbye. It's a promise that he is coming back not to seek approval, but to offer something real. The final chapter brings closure, but not a bow. No fairy tale, no perfect resolution. Just a man returning, not fixed, but freer. Not certain of the future, but finally willing to claim it. And when the protagonist steps aside to let him in, we feel the weight of that gesture. It's not forgiveness, it's recognition that both have grown. That love, in its rawest form, is not a destination. It's a choice, one you make again and again, even when it's hard. This story matters because it doesn't chase fantasy. It respects reality. It holds space for grief, rage, and beauty in equal measure. It reminds us that visibility is a gift, that kindness offered once can echo forever, and that sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. It slips in, sits beside you quietly on the couch, and hands you a letter with your name written in shaky, familiar handwriting. For anyone who has ever loved in silence, for anyone who has ever waited to be chosen, For anyone who is still figuring it all out, this story is for you.